I think we are at a very critical juncture towards the 2015 Paris Agreement. I think there are three key components to come up with a successful agreement. One is that individual countries' contribution, like INDC, and if we do have good numbers on that. The second element is that how to catalyze actions on the ground, which is scalable and systemic impacts on the ground. Third component is finance, and I think GEF has a very important role to play in each of the three. And if I may elaborate a little bit, the first point is how to help countries to come up with their contribution. Here, we have been helping countries through national communication strategy and the BUR, those several instruments to help countries to come up with a good number and also to help create the baseline for programming. The second area I mentioned is how to catalyze actions on the ground, which is also very important because in order for the climate we can win the fight against the climate change. The most important thing is then how to catalyze the transformational actions on the ground. So how we can translate those numbers into actual actions. So this area that we have been working, say for three key areas: energy system, city system, and land use system. So for each of those three areas, we have been working with countries and the private sector, civil societies for the last 2 decades to mobilize actions on the ground. So this is the second area. We want to continue to work with catalyzing actions from various quarters of the world. If we have time, we want to go through, but otherwise, we come back on that later. The third area is the finance. That may be of your best interest. Here the GEF has already collected 3 billion for the climate finance money for the next 4 years. But it's not only just 3 billion. We have quite a large leverage at the mobilizing ratio, and I expect the 3 billion catalyze the actions, the money of about 30 billion. But more importantly, there are new funds like the GCF and others, so there are quite a number of that funds already available here. So we need to work very closely, collaboratively, coherently to how to all together create or catalyze the more actions on the ground. And here I think that we have a lot to offer.
How do you see the relationship between the GEF and the GCF? Do you see any kind of competitiveness going on there?
Actually, I really don't see any competition in the sense that what we were talking about is a very small part of the public sector money. The GEF has said 4 billion for next 4 years. GCF has very successfully catalyzed that 10 billion, which is absolutely important. I want to congratulate the GCF for successful capitalization, and we expect more to come. But the challenging part is that how this GEF and GCF still very small part of the public funding and private sector funding. These days annually 360 billion US dollars are in the green market. So how our small money of 4 billion and 10 billion can really catalyze that major actions, also mobilizing other funds. So this is a critical area. So there is no issue or no reason to compete. It's more like how we can jointly, collectively catalyze the major transformation action. And for assuming GCF gets a lot of big money, and GEF has been working in this area for 20 years. To me, the natural instinct is that we want to continue to be piloting, testing a new technology, new idea, new business model, and once proven, other big money can scale it up.
And how do you see the role of the GEF in adaptation finance particularly?
This issue becomes very important. We come to know that there is a huge gap, the huge adaptation gap exists, and both the events on the ground as well as the science tells us the needs will be much more, even if we achieve the 2-degree scenario. The good news is that we have been working through LDCF and SCCF for the last 10 years. We already have a portfolio of 1.2 billion. The capacity has been augmented throughout the LDC and small island states. So we have a very good base to move up and catalyze more actions on the ground. However, money is a problem. That we have almost approved all of the money which is committed and money at our hand. And in order that the situation is that we were not able to fund that projects which are already approved because we don't have money. So in order not to lose momentum and in order for us to continue to help countries to take the quick action, we hope that the donors will give this the resources to very, very urgently needed agenda.
And is the GEF also looking at some finance in relation to loss and damage, which is a new mechanism that is kind of coming forward?
We to us that how to take the natural disaster risk management in the adaptation plan and actually development plan is a very, very important area. So that and many of the countries have already started to how to incorporate risk related to the climate change into their national development plan. We have already supported many of those efforts, and we want to continue to support those kind of areas.